career-wise, I love to start off with just like kind of how you got to where you are. And you have a really fun story because you started in the salon, right?
Yes. I got hired as a receptionist. I loved working there. It was like a fun environment. Beauty is a fun space. Like, as you know.
Transformations.
Yeah, just the whole beauty world, everything.
Yep.
So it was really fun. And they had classes there for their stylists on Mondays. And so I would work as reception when they were having classes. And that's when I opened my eyes to like the possibilities in the hair world, because they would watch like Fashion Week videos where Guido was styling hair. And I was like, oh my God, someone does hair for fashion shows? You know, like, and then I was like, oh my God, someone does hair for like magazine shoots? Someone does hair for celebrities on a carpet? Like, we just didn't realize that that was someone's job back then, which it sounds crazy to say now because it's so obvious now, but like back then before social media, no one knew who the pros were behind the scenes. So then I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to work like backstage at Fashion Week. I want to do someone's hair for a magazine shoot. I want to do all that. So I went to cosmetology school. I worked in the salon on weekends and at night, and as an assistant. And then by the time I was done with cosmetology school, I was ready to go on the floor and be a stylist at the salon. And then once I had worked in that salon for 8 years, I was like, oh my God, I've been in a salon for 8 years. Like, this is not my goal. This isn't why I went to cosmetology school. I want to do all these other things. Yeah. So I was like, I have to move to a big city. I would read the back of every magazine and like circle the salons where they had like the directory in every city, because this is before social media. And like, I have to like, it sounds crazy to say these things because like now you just like look on Instagram and like see who has followers, but that didn't exist back then. And so then I wanted to work at Andy Lecomte's salon because I saw in V magazine that he was Madonna's hairstylist. And I was like, that's where I want to work. So I would drive up every Monday when I had a day off from Santa Barbara to LA, walk into Andy Lecomte's salon and just ask them if they were hiring. And they'd be like, no, we're not hiring. Try again later. And I'd be like, okay. And then I'd come back again. And I'd be like, hey, are you guys hiring now? And they'd be like, no, we're not hiring. And I'd be like, okay. And then around this time, Instagram had just started becoming a thing. Yeah. And I was following Jen Atkin and I was following Kristen S. And those were the two people really at the forefront of social media as hairstylists behind the scenes doing this type of work. So I followed both of them. And around the same time, they had both posted job postings that they were looking for an assistant. So I replied to both the job postings, didn't hear anything. Like for months, I didn't really expect to hear anything. Yeah. Then a few months went by and Kristen reached out and was like, oh, can you come for an interview? I came and interviewed. I'm trying to remember if it was Kristen that I interviewed first with or Jen, but they both called me to interview. Wow. Yeah, so I went and I interviewed. I got hired by both of them. But what was really cool was that Jen's interview was at Andy Lecomte's salon because she was a stylist there. So then I did not know that. Yeah. So then I walked into Andy Lecomte and I was like, yeah, and I got hired there. And I was like, oh, it worked out. Like, even though it was like a different path than I thought that would take me there, but I still got there. Yeah. And then what's cool too, fast forwarding a little bit, is that after I worked for Jen for a little bit, once I was done assisting her, I became a stylist at Andy Lecomte's salon for a little bit too. Yeah. And so that was so cool. It was like full circle. Yeah. So anyways, backtracking. So then I got hired by both of them. I worked for both of them for a summer. Okay. But then it became the time when Jen was starting Main Addicts. Oh, yeah. And she was like, I really need someone to just spearhead this. So I need you full time if this is what you want to do. She's like, I need an answer by tomorrow or something. It was like really short where I was like, oh, I have to decide what to do. Yeah. And but she brought me on for that role because prior to this, I had my own personal blog, and I had experience like writing content and like taking photos and just doing that kind of stuff. Yep. And so that's what she brought me on to Main Addicts to do. So I went with Jen and I decided to help her spearhead Main Addicts. And I was the editorial director there when it was an online editorial platform. And in addition to being the editorial director of Maynetics, I was also her personal assistant and her hair assistant. So I would like be calling stylists and like doing interviews over the phone, and then I'd be like typing content, and then I'd be like shooting content, then I'd be running and like grabbing her dry cleaning, then I'd be meeting her at a client's house, and then I would be like going and picking up tissue boxes, and then I'd be like getting cleaning supplies, and then I'd be like organizing her deck, and like it was just I was
did
just
not know any of this.
yeah, it was a lot, and so I was working like around the clock, like nonstop. Like I'd wake up like at 7 a.m. to like 100 text messages, and then I would like work, like type on my computer like ferociously and like go and run around. Thank God my husband was understanding, because I wouldn't have been able to maintain like any personal relationships in my life at that time. But I did that for a really long time. And then anytime that I had a day off, I would run to Santa Barbara, where I was from, pound out all my clients, like work a 12 or 13.
Clients.
I was, because I wasn't making any money.
True.
And so I'd go and pound out like a 13-hour day of clients.
Yeah.
And then I'd like come back and
do
and that
the other
was
stuff.
My,
The extra,
that was like my life for a long time. It was like a grind, but it was fun.
Yes.
Because I learned so many amazing skills. And I remember feeling at the time like a little bit frustrated at times, because I'm like, oh, I really want to be doing hair, but I'm like typing and like copywriting stories and like, you know, just random things like that. But I'm so glad that I learned those skills, because now I use those skills, and those are important life skills too. And so that's why I feel like the best advice I could give is that like nothing is a straight line.
100%.
And so it's like sometimes you go like this to get to where you want to go, and all those lessons and things that you learn along the way become the things that make you to that point where you want to be.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and you're also like you said, collecting experience that you have this like top of the mountain goal, right? And you think like, exactly, you think like, oh, this is how I'm going to get there. But like, actually, you're going to be better when you get there, because you stopped here, and you're like, oh, I got there, but I can also do all these other things that maybe other people who took the straight line couldn't do.
Totally.
You know, like it's crazy to think of you doing all that stuff, because the way that it is now, and the way that you're so good with content, you're so good with social media, like.
But it's because of that.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like you laid the groundwork by doing something like that. When I did makeup, I remember I was so ingrained in like doing makeup, and I only did it for like 2 years, but like. When I stopped, I was like, you know what? I don't want to be a makeup artist. I don't think this is my thing. I want to work in beauty, but same thing at the time. There were not jobs like this.
Right.
You were a makeup artist, or you worked in like merchandising in beauty, or you were worked at a magazine. I couldn't do any of those things. So I went into production, and I like didn't have a computer. Like I was like, I don't even know how to work. Like I check email, like I'm Word. I was like, it had been like in high school, because as a makeup artist, I was just doing makeup, creative, driving around. I wasn't using computers for anything. So I remember like when I learned that, and actually the stop that I took into production is like exactly all the things that I collected during that time. I started a blog, same thing. Like I started creating content, and I was like, I don't know, all these things are going to come together for me eventually. And it took me 9 years.
Right.
But then I got to
and then look at
and
you now.
and it's like all
podcast.
The things, all the things go and they come together. And actually like even what you just said about like it's not a straight line, like that's one of my favorite things about hearing about people is like even their start in their career, is that I think it's so important for people to hear that. Yeah. Because it is hard. Like the beauty industry is hard.
It is.
It's hard to crack into. It's a very popular thing, like a career to have. Right. And so like it feels like a lot of people want to do it. And so it can feel like you're like, how am I going to do it? I felt like that. I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get into beauty. I think I'm the perfect person to work in beauty. And same thing, hair, makeup, whatever it is. But you're like, and you can be so talented, but you feel like you can't get that break. Right. So I think like even knowing you spent 8 years in a salon, knowing that you were an assistant and you were an editor, like you're still taking clients, like, and then you look at where you are now. Like it's just, I think it's important for people to like know.
And you also never know how it's going to work out for you. Because even when I was assisting Jen, I remember thinking like, oh, I don't know like how I'll ever go out on my own, because it's not like because Khloe Kardashian was one of her main clients at the time. And I'm like, it's not like she would ever give me Khloe. And then she gave me Khloe. And then I started doing Khloe like every day for the show.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man, you just never really know like what's going to happen.
Yeah. You make assumptions. You can make assumptions in your head, but actually it's the worst thing that you can do.
You just never know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's wild. That's so,
I
I knew the salon thing. Like like that you started in a salon, and I actually didn't realize it was 8 years. Like, again, that's another really, I think, sometimes like people, they want to get there fast. Yeah. And like 8 years is a significant amount of time to spend in the salon. Because Haley Heckman, she told me, I didn't realize she started in a salon too. Yeah. Do you feel like that you're glad that you have that experience? Does it like still come in handy? Because I mean, that's sometimes color too. But but I see you do haircuts sometimes for some of your clients, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it gave me a good foundation. Yeah. Like I feel like it gave me the time to really perfect my skills.
And you probably worked with so many different hair types.
Totally.
Like you kind of get that like right off the bat.
Yeah, it was a good experience in that sense where,
It's definitely like a path you can take too.
Totally.
Like you don't have to go right into one or right into the other.
Totally.
You can kind of like collect both.
Totally. I do miss like working in a salon. I loved my clients. Like I felt like I had cool people that were coming in, and like you kind of become friends with people when they come in. You see them every couple months for years, you know?
It's like welcoming them into your home.
Yeah,
too,
you kind of like
come to you.
And, you get to know them. And so I do like miss that aspect of it. Yeah. But man, I cannot stand on my feet that long every single day. And like I hated doing color because I would stain all my clothes.
Oh my goodness.
And I had acne from the color.
Oh,
and it was just like, just like, it's just not for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I also am a Sagittarius. So like I don't like every day being exactly the same. So that's why I like my job now, because like I'm on different locations and I work with different people, and like I'm in different cities. Yeah. And every day is different.
And every person has different preferences. Like it's not, you're not just writing trends. You're like, there's people who are like, I want to try something new, or some people, you get to do it all. I mean, yes, if I agree, because freelance, depending on the type of person that you are, freelance can be absolutely terrifying to people. Where they were like, they might feel the opposite. They may go like, I can't do the unknown. Like I can't, like, no. Totally. And I was kind of like that. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm a control freak, like I just a planner. And so for me, like, you know, that always scared me about doing freelance, because I was like, which I'm sure you still have. Listen, it doesn't mean that just because you like that doesn't mean that's not difficult. Still, obviously, freelance is not for the faint of heart.
No,
is what
totally.
We like to say. Yeah. When you just mentioned Jen giving you Khloe, which is amazing. Like you have worked with the Kardashians, obviously. Did you feel like that was your big break? Like, what was it that kind of like took you from being like where you were, the grind, and you like kind of crossed that threshold into the celebrity world?
Totally, it was definitely the Kardashians, because they just have the Midas touch on anything that they touch, and they're just trendsetters with everything that they do.
Yeah, and they have the show, so it's like they're constantly moving, they're constantly glamming.
Doing new looks and willing to try new things. Yep. And at the time, like what happened that was like the big break is that Jen texted me and she was like, do you know how to braid hair? And I sent a picture of someone I had braided their hair like 2 days before. And she was like, okay, great. Can you go braid Kim right now? And I was like, oh, okay. And I like turn around like my car. I think I was in like Studio City going to a workout or something. And I'm like, okay. And like go to Kim's house. And it was when she was wearing her hair in braids a lot. It was right after she had Saint, I think. And she wore her hair in braids. And then after that, everyone was wearing their hair in braids. It became such a trend. I remember going to Topshop and all the mannequins had braids in their hair, like her hair. And I was like, this is crazy. So then everyone, and I was braiding her hair all the time. It was just 2 braids. Yeah, like nothing the 2 French braids. Crazy. Yeah.
Was it the innie or the outie?
The outie.
The outie. It was the outie braid. Yeah.
Right. Nothing mind-blowing over here. But still
those
it
braids
became a trend. Yeah, totally. And she, I think, called me the queen of braids on her Snapchat or something like that, you know. And so that was really what happened. Wow. Yeah, so sweet of her.
I mean, yeah. And
it was also just so nice of her to give me a chance. Like I was just honored that she even would like let me do that. She has access to anyone in the whole world. Like I just think that they're so cool for all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I told Ash K. Home when she was on that we worked with Khloe, with you. You did her glam for our campaign that we did with her a couple years ago. But I'm like truly so impressed with the operation. Like I'm not just saying this, like so on time. Everything is like
totally.
And everybody is kind, courteous, like it blew my mind. And not that like other people aren't, but it was just like, it was an experience.
I
like,
feel
truly
spoiled by their like professionalism.
Yes.
Because not everyone is like that in our industry. And I'm like, man, I work with great people. Like they are so on time, so professional, so kind to everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I got to learn that too from them.
Yeah.
It's inspiring.
Yeah. I remember we were like 15 minutes behind. We just had like a camera change or something that like was a little bump. And I remember I was like, Chloe, we'll wrap this up. We'll get you out in time because she was, had to. We were gonna wrap at 5, right? Mm-hmm. She's like, I'll stay. Whatever you need, you just let me know. Aww. I'm like, this woman who like clearly she's busy, right? And she just was like, no, I'll stay. You let me know. Like
That's
it was
so
just
sweet.
The whole thing was like from her glam team to her team to her like truly, I do agree. I think they're like just great. Like
totally,
it's a really great.
There's
experience.
a reason why they have the success that they do.
Yep.
Yeah. You see it when you work with them.
Yeah,
You're
you
like,
get you really get the behind the scenes,
mm-hmm.
but and even just like as a partner when we worked, it's something like that shoot really stands out to me because it was just like so wonderful and pleasant and just like it was an operation, but it wasn't like a rigid operation. It was still had like the kindness and like the heart in it.
Totally.
So yeah, no, that was fun. It was fun because to work with you on regular campaigns and then to see you working with Kardashian.
Totally.
It was really cool. But I didn't know the Kim braids thing. I didn't know if you first did Chloe or Kim. I couldn't remember.
I did Kim first.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I started doing Chloe.
Okay.
Yeah, it was fun. That was a fun year. That was like my breakout year because then they were my first. They weren't my first celeb clients, but they were my first big clients. And then that year, I like traveled the world with them. I think we went to Iceland and Cuba, and it was just so so fun and exciting, and
that's so cool.